Hello, everyone. This is Kennedy Fowler here with Speak Up with Sean Marcus. I'm new here and I will be joining my dad, Sean Marcus, and my brother, who does Speak Up Sports, Sean Marcus Jr. As we know, it is Black History Month, and I thought, what better way to celebrate Black History Month um, than to talk about something that is really not talked about a lot and sometimes avoided in conversations within the Black community, and that is the topic of swimming. So today I interviewed Dr. Ayanna Raku, who studies and is a swimmer. She really wants to get the message out there on Black women, Black people in general, in swimming, the misconceptions and the truths on Black people in swimming and what we can do to get Black people in the water. So if you could just help me and welcoming her, and yeah, let's get to it. Just state your first and last name so I know how to pronounce it well.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Ayanna Raku.
Dr. Ayanna Raku. Okay, thank you. Dr. Ayanna, if you could just, or Dr. Raku, if you can just, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into swimming and, your interest in, about your interest and desire in starting this and sharing with everyone the importance of Black girls in swimming and how it's really, it's not a lot. We don't have a lot of representation with Black women and girls in the sport. So if you could just tell me about yourself and how you're passionate about this.
Yeah, so I started swimming around age 6, but I think my mom realized that I had an interest in water earlier than that. So maybe when I was a toddler, 2, 3 years old, I lived in Minnesota, Minneapolis at the time with her, and that's the state of 10,000 lakes. So we spent a lot of time at the different lakes and bodies of water outside, and I would always see the lifeguards outside sitting on their, excuse me, sitting on their tall chairs. And I'd be like, I want to do that, or that looks fun. So that was always really interesting to me. I just loved being in the water. And so around age 6, he put me in swim lessons, and I caught on pretty quickly and started doing competitive swim from there. Went through all the little levels, guppies, fish, or, the little swim levels. And then I started doing competitive swim, which was great for a while. And then I moved back to St. Louis and tried to continue my competitive swim journey, and it didn't go as well as I would have liked. I had some coaching issues and things like that, so decided to drop competitive swim, but still loved the water so much, and ended up just, uh, keeping up my swimming skills, taking lessons, and eventually becoming a lifeguard. So that was my first job, and still a certified lifeguard, and have been in the field of an aquatic professional for over 20 years now, working in various aspects of aquatics, so administration, lifeguarding, teaching lessons, coaching, all these things, right? So, but really it was my mom recognizing that love for the water that I had and taking action and saying, yeah, we got to teach her how to swim, even though she wasn't an avid swimmer herself. My grandmother also had a big hand in that. My paternal grandmother, she paid for our swim lessons, myself, my brother and sister, and my cousin, made sure we all knew how to swim, took us to the pool every summer. And so that was really a passion of hers. And we all actually, all 4 out of the 5 of us became lifeguards at some point. So I was
Wow.
the first, I'm the oldest, and then everybody just kind of followed suit, and we all worked at the same pool at one point. So, yeah, that's kind of my love for water was always there, and my mom really nurtured that. And then it wasn't until I actually became pregnant with my daughter, 8 years ago now, my daughter's 8, that I realized my passion for the water in this way that I'm studying now, and kind of the way I'm thinking about it now. I just realized how valuable it is to be able to pass that skill on to your children. And I guess, once you start having children, you start thinking about posterity and legacy and what can I pass on. And I realized the ability to know how to navigate water in a world that's 70% water was really important. And so I swam my entire pregnancy up through 8 months,
Wow.
and thinking that, that was going to also give my daughter a connection with the water. It didn't actually work out that way, so we had to work at it. But that's when I really fell in love with the water again after some time being away from it.
Wow, that's so awesome. So, when you were younger and swimming and going to your lessons and stuff, did you see, was majority of the people there um, not of color, or was it majority um, Caucasian or other races?
Yeah, for sure. So I started my swim journey, as far as I can remember, in Minneapolis.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, predominantly white, as far as I can remember, maybe a little bit of maybe some other races, but predominantly white. But I don't think that I recognized that at that age.
Right. Hmm.
And I think even growing up through high school and things like that, it didn't matter to me so much. I didn't really notice it. I mean, I was
Right.
aware kind of different things like hair issues, okay, my hair is different from theirs and I have to do different things. And maybe it bothered me a little bit from time to time, but for the most part, I didn't really realize that. And again, it wasn't until I was pregnant, having a daughter, and realizing that none of my friends, were really swimming, and who am I going to call to let my daughter play with, and all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't until later that I realized, man, this is kind of an issue, and I feel a little bit isolated.
Right. Right. And does your daughter swim now? Is she an active swimmer?
She is now. It took a bit. I put her in swim lessons kind of against my better judgment around age 4, and she had a traumatic experience. It was pretty, it was rough on her to just be in a class of, you never swam before, never kind of been in depths of water, and they ask you to like jump off the side or put your face in the water. And these are kind of the first things they're asking you to do. And so she was not having it. And I thought that, me swimming with her during my pregnancy would help, her connect with the water. It didn't work out that way. And so then after that kind of experience, I let her go about a year or two without swimming at all. And then I
Hmm.
said, okay, I'm going to have to teach her myself. And I wanted to teach her myself. So I did. But when I tell you she was the hardest student I've had thus far, because there's already that mother-daughter relationship. And so, you don't know really how, she didn't know how to feel, and so she would scream at the top of her lungs, Mom, no, you're trying to hurt me, I can't do this, stuff like that. But finally we had some breakthroughs, and I think the huge breakthrough was being consistent. So after a while I was like, okay, we're going to go every Friday, and we're going to go to the same place, and we're going to do the same thing. And she started to get some comfort around that. And before you know it, right around age 6, 7, she was putting her face in the water and going underwater, which was like a huge deal. And now
That's
she's
awesome.
flourishing in it. She loves it. She says it's her happy place. And we just actually swam a couple of days ago, and she said, Mom, my shoulders just feel so light. I feel so good now after our swim. So
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So, what would you say are some, I guess, misconceptions of, um, I guess, I don't know if I'm wording this right, but like some misconceptions of swimming, especially when it comes to Black women or people of color in general?
yeah, misconceptions is an interesting word because I think there are some myths about why Black people don't swim, or particularly Black women don't swim. And the number one we all go to is hair, right? We
Hmm.
don't want to get our hair wet. It costs a lot to do it. All these things, and I would say that's not a misconception. That's actually really a true issue and a barrier for us, and it should be respected and acknowledged because
Hmm.
for Black people of African descent, our hair is very important to us, and it means something different in our culture. And so now the kind of the thing is, can we find caps that help us protect our hair better? And there's a lot of companies,
Right.
a few companies that are really working at that. So like Soul Cap and Swimma, they are creating caps that fit our hair that help protect it a little bit better. My daughter uses soul caps often, and her hair doesn't. She has long locks, to her shoulders, and it doesn't get completely soaked or saturated. So that's working. And I think that's a huge barrier. But other misconceptions are that we don't want to, that
Mm.
Black women just don't want to swim. We're not interested, and that I would say is a misconception. The study that I just completed for my dissertation dealt with African American mothers and developing swim efficacy. So this idea of being comfortable in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was that of the 40 mothers that I interviewed, a majority of them wanted to swim. They were saying, this is whether I swim or not. And I interviewed people from all levels of, from being afraid of the water to being competitive swimmers. And everybody was saying, I want to swim. Now I have these barriers that are kind of stopping me from doing it, but there is a desire. And they wanted their children to swim. So I think the hair and the not wanting to are kind of big misconceptions. But the hair thing is a real thing.
Yeah, because I know for me personally, like, I only really went swimming if I had my hair was braided, and I felt like, the chlorine would be damaging to my natural hair, just the whole thing. But that is really interesting, and good to hear that there are brands that cater to our natural hair, to
Yeah, and I will
protect it.
say too that it's just also about getting a routine. I know that the swimmer Simone Manuel, that was the first African American female to win a gold medal at the Olympics, she did like an Instagram post about her hair routine, and it was
Mm.
really great because it just lets people know that there is a way that you can. She's in the water twice a day, sometimes all week. And she talked about how she conditions and what days she washes and, when she does different things with her styling. And so I think it's possible, it's possible for us to do that, but we've got to have resources and have people
Right.
let us know, like, here's what products to buy, here's how you can do this. And not even for ourselves as adults, but for our kids. A lot of people are not letting their kids swim because what do
Mm.
I do with their hair, particularly girls?
Right. And what would you, um, what advice would you have for those who want to swim, but just fear or not knowing how to start, what to do, being raised and believing these lies or I it was a long time ago, but I don't know the stats and I know you're studying this, but like is it okay? That's going to be a separate question. But what would it's just a lot. But what advice do you have for those who are wanting to swim but have these fears or have these lies that they can't swim because of their hair and stuff like that? How would you advise them to get started?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is talk about it. I think and that's kind of a simple thing that people don't really expect me to say, but we really have to start having these conversations. The one that you and I are having right now, and just around the dinner table with our grandparents, with our parents. Hey, did you swim? Do you have any traumas around water? Here's how I experience the water. So having those conversations is a good way to get more interested, right? So we say, yeah, I want to swim, I may do that, but really talking about it, it'll be like, okay, maybe I can do this. So that's the first step, and then it's starting to research. Start doing your research. Start looking for people who look like you that are swimming. I mean, the internet is amazing, so there's tons of resources out there. It's just a matter of really wanting it and really getting out there and searching, um, and looking for that information. And then also finding other people in your community that want to swim and doing it
Mm-hmm.
together. I think for us as Black people, it's about not wanting to go to the pool and feel alone, feel like I don't know what to do. I've heard people say, I want to go to the pool, but I have no idea what to do once I get there. Like, especially if you're not an avid swimmer and you don't want to swim laps. And a lot of us don't. We just want to get in there and play, and
Right.
that's okay. And we got
Mm-hmm.
to know that even as grown folks, like, you can get in there and splash around and you're doing it, whatever you want to do. So I would say that, yeah, for sure, talk about it. Find people in your community that want to swim. And then go find a place that you're interested in. Go with someone you love and care about. Stick your toes in. Just put your feet on the side. Whatever you got to do to get near some water. Take a bath. Take a
Right.
shower. Seriously, it's just connecting with the water. your eyes and I said, go for a swim, or you're going for a swim, or I'm going to swim, this image pops up in your head of what you would be doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to debunk that myth and say, like, swimming is really having a connection with the water and being able to move your body through the water.
Mm-hmm.
That could be swim aerobics. That could be getting in and splashing with your kids. It could be any of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I liked how you put that because I think of the swimmer, you know. With me, I'm like, I don't know how to swim. I only know how to doggy paddle. But swimming could be anything. But yeah, thank you for that. Now, has there been any interesting statistics or something that really stuck out to you that, or you feel like not a lot of people know when studying this?
Yeah, so there's some more common ones that kind of come out, and I'm saying it's just in a, well, I'm not privy to sharing these statistics. And the reason is because, right, Black people are always a statistic of some sort, and a lot of times it's not positive. And so I'll give you the statistics, but also there's us, there's what we're actually trying to do and the work that, you know, is happening in communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the main statistics is that 64% of African Americans don't know how to swim or have low swim ability, right? And then parents who don't know how to swim are less likely to teach their child how to swim. So then if a parent, at least one parent doesn't know how to swim, your child is 15% less likely to, or I'm sorry, I'm messing that up. Your child is 75% less likely to learn, right? So if you don't have any swim background or know how to swim, you're less likely to take your child to swim. And then also just the drowning rate. That's a huge one, and that is a very serious statistic that 5.5 times children are drowning. Children of color are drowning more often. So I'll say that again. Children of color between the ages of 4 to 14 are drowning at a 5.5 greater rate than their Caucasian peers.
Wow.
And so that is very serious. I mean, if you had a group of 10 kids and 5 of them were of color, you're telling me that these 5 are most at risk. And so that is why it's important for us as community, family, parents to get those kids out there and getting them comfortable with the water and getting ourselves comfortable. But those statistics are, you know, they are relevant, but we don't have to live up to those. We don't have to continue to perpetuate those statistics. We can change that.
Right. Thank you. That was actually going to be my next question, was the drowning rate, and if there is a bigger number with Black people and children, especially, than, you know, white peers. So that was going to be my next question. So thank you for really hitting on that.
Yeah, and I would say too. I would say too around that is how we're drowning, right? Like so a lot of times it's, you know, rivers or lakes or bodies of water that we're just not aware of the current, or we're not aware of how this body of water works, or even it's unattended pools, you know, and we don't know that, oh, it gets deep at this point, you know. So it's just the not being aware of how bodies of water work and how to move in them. And so water safety is really a huge piece there, where it's more than learning how to swim, but it's also understanding how to be safe around bodies of water. And I think just that knowledge can help a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time because I know it's the evening. But is there anything else that you would like to add or touch on that I didn't mention or ask you that you feel is really important and that people should know about swimming, and especially with for potential Black swimmers or people who just want to get more comfortable with the water?
Yeah, I think an important piece that a lot of us don't know is the history of swimming for African and African American people, and how we have always been, you're talking about going back to the 1400s, to the 1800s, we have always been the best swimmers, boaters, divers, fishers, surfers of our time, right? And so this, us not, Black people don't swim, that whole thing is only about 100 years old, right?
Wow.
Before the early 1900s, African Americans and Black people of African descent have been the best swimmers. We free dive over 100 feet. You know, you miles into the ocean. So, I mean, it's not new for us. I think we have a disconnection from that history and from who we are as a maritime people, as water people, and what that meant to our spirituality and what it meant to our healing, and how it was a source of occupation for us. And I think those three things are really important for us to realize that even today, the water is a source of healing, occupation, and recreation. And we've got to reclaim that. It's ours to have. It always has been. And so I think that's the most important thing. Look up y'all history. Look it up.
Right.
It's out there.
I did not know that. So thank you.
So,
So
yeah.
what do you think was the disconnect between then and now?
Yeah, well, I would say that the trip across the Atlantic during the transatlantic slave trade had a big, part in it. There started to be a disconnect there. I mean, you can imagine that in Africa, we were in the warmest of waters. Water was surrounding us on all sides. Even inland, there were lakes and rivers, and we were fishers and boaters. So, I mean, everybody, you grew up swimming from 8 months on. You grew up being in the water. And so, it was just a part of our culture. And I think being disconnected from that culture, taken from our land, taken to different types of water. So now you're on a different side of the Atlantic where it's colder, thus our aversion to cold water, right? So there's all these pieces that kind of slowly took us further and further from it. But even as enslaved Africans in the United States, we were still a maritime people. So it really wasn't until the late 1800s, early 1900s, when there was this big pool building spree. So, on the East Coast, even in St. Louis, in the Midwest, Europeans started to kind of notice that swimming was a thing, because Europeans weren't swimming before that. They were not avid swimmers. But after the Olympics, they started, the 1912 Olympics, they started wanting to swim more. And then it was a demand for pools. Once that happened, then there was that segregation we see where, there's no Black people allowed in these bodies of water, and not even pools, but beaches as well. So that lack of access was that really disconnect there. Because before, we were always in the water.
Right,
So cutting off access was a huge thing. And I think just generationally over time, we had that disconnect. But now we have a little bit more access. It's not perfect. It's not where it should be. But we have to start making those steps to demanding more access, to creating our own spaces, right? To, taking the initiative to learn to be lifeguards, swim instructors, and all these things so that we can build up the occupation, the recreation, the healing process.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I didn't even think about all that. Like I really didn't. And it's crazy how it's just crazy. But that's really interesting and that's really important for us to know our history. Thank you for sharing that.
I got one more thing to add.
Yes.
My mother, she's awesome. She has been just such a supporter of everything I do. I'm an only child too, so she's on top of it. She's like, whatever you're doing, I'm doing. But so my work and my dissertation really inspired her to swim. So before she was not an avid swimmer, but she has been swimming now. So we are now 3 generations of swimmers.
That's
Herself,
awesome.
myself, and my daughter. And she's become so good at it practicing so much that she wants to compete at the master's level in her age group. And so she started to practice for that. Yeah. And one other thing that she did to share her swim journey was she started a Facebook group. And the group is called Becoming a Black Girl Who Swims. So for anybody that's, any woman that is interested in, like, I want to get started, I don't know where to start, this group is a great place to start. It's so supportive. We've just got a great, family feel in there from women all over the country who are learning to swim and sharing their swim journey. So feel free to look us up on Facebook there.
Yeah. And how long has she been swimming for?
Yeah, so I would say it's going on 2 years now where she's been a little, really serious about it. But in this past year, she's been going weekly. So at least 2 or 3 times a week and gaining her practice. So she's doing awesome.
That's awesome. And okay, last question. I know you talked about how before, when you moved to St. Louis when you were younger, the swimming didn't really go the way you had planned it to. But what kept you inspired and not to just give up and be like, oh, well, it's hard here? You know, what kept you driven and inspired to not give up and not just put swimming in the background?
Yeah, I think I had experienced enough joy in it that I didn't want to give up that joy. There is something special about what your body does when it's in the water and how it feels. And I think so many of us are missing out on that joy. But if you can just, give it a shot, it is such a place of peace. And just like my daughter's been saying, she's like, I feel like a mermaid. I'm this. I'm magical. And so I just felt that as a young child, and I didn't want to give that part of it up. I did not like the competitive piece as much. So I think that was just an internal thing, and it's not for everybody. And I guess I want people to know that that's not the only way to swim. Like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be competitive. And once I figured out, I can make money, I can travel. I've traveled based on lifeguarding,
Wow.
and other aquatic things. I'm a scuba diver now, and so there's so much you can do with it, right? So much of the world you can see if you can be in the water. So I didn't want to give that up.
Wow, that's awesome. And that, are there any swimmers that you look up to personally?
I'm gonna say actually my mom, and
Awesome.
I really mean that. Her tenacity for it now and her dedication to it has just it's motivating to me. I make sure I try to get to the pool at least a couple times a week as well. Get my daughter to the pool, so I would say she's my favorite swimmer.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, thank you so much. And is there anything else you would like to add that I didn't mention?
I think we got it, most of it.
Hey, what's up, America? Thank you for checking out the show. If you like the content and the vibe, come join us. Click on the link below.